Cade Ashworth had waited 10 years for this day. As the Alpha King of the Nightfall territories, he had trained his body, sharpened his mind, and hardened his heart for one single purpose: revenge. His parents had been killed in a brutal attack on the northern border when he was only 18. The attackers belonged to the Vance Pack, the very people he was now about to marry into. The wedding hall was full of tension. Two powerful packs sat on opposite sides, watching each other with careful eyes. A fragile peace treaty had forced this marriage. Cade would marry Elira Vance, daughter of the pack that destroyed his family, and in return, both territories would avoid a war that could kill hundreds. But Cade had a secret plan. He did not intend to build peace. He intended to use this marriage as a way inside the Vance Pack. Once he understood their weaknesses, he would take everything from them, just as they had taken everything from him. Elira stood at the altar in a simple silver dress, her chin lifted with quiet pride. She was not marrying Cade out of love either. She had agreed to this union to protect her people from a war they could not win. She also carried a secret of her own. For years, she had doubted the official story about the border attack. Something about it never made sense to her, and she intended to find the truth, no matter what it cost her. When Cade took her hand during the ceremony, something inside him shifted. His wolf, the powerful animal spirit that lived within every werewolf, went completely silent for a moment. Then it surged forward with a force Cade had never felt before. Mate. The word echoed through his mind like a drumbeat. Cade's breath caught. His wolf had just claimed Elira Vance, the daughter of his enemies, as his true mate. This was not supposed to happen. This was the one outcome he had never prepared for. He forced himself to remain calm as the ceremony continued, but inside, a war had already begun. In the weeks that followed, Cade tried to distance himself from Elira. He spoke to her only when necessary and kept their meetings short and formal. He told himself that his wolf's reaction meant nothing. He had a mission, and he would not let instinct destroy years of planning. But his wolf refused to be ignored. Every time Elira entered a room, Cade felt a pull in his chest, as if invisible threads connected them. When she was upset, his wolf grew restless. When she smiled at one of the pack members, a strange warmth spread through him that he quickly pushed away. Elira noticed his coldness, but she did not let it discourage her. She spent her days learning about the Nightfall Pack, walking through the training grounds, speaking with the warriors, and observing how Cade ruled. She was surprised to find that he was fair with his people, even if he was distant with her. There was more to him than the cold king she had expected. One evening, Elira found old letters in a hidden drawer of her father's study back home, letters she had brought with her before the wedding. They mentioned a group of council members who had pushed for the attack on the Nightfall border many years ago. Her father's name was mentioned too, but not as someone who ordered the attack. Instead, the letters suggested he had tried to stop it and failed. Her hands trembled as she read the words again. If this was true, then her father had been blamed for something he never wanted to happen. And if her father was innocent, then someone else in the Vance Pack was responsible for the deaths of Cade's parents. She knew she had to tell Cade, but she also knew he might not believe her. To him, she was still the daughter of the family that destroyed his life. Meanwhile, Cade continued his own investigation, quietly gathering information about the Vance Pack's trade routes and alliances. He found a weak point in one of their agreements and decided to use it against them, hoping to destabilize their power from within. But when he set his plan into motion, something went wrong. The disruption in the trade agreement led to an unexpected attack on a supply caravan, one that Elira happened to be traveling with that day. When Cade received word that she was in danger, something inside him broke loose. His wolf did not wait for his permission. It took over completely, driving him forward with a speed and fury he barely recognized as his own. He arrived at the scene just as the attackers were closing in on Elira and her guards. Cade fought without thinking about the consequences, moving with a raw desperation to protect her. When the fighting ended and Elira stood safely behind him, unharmed, Cade felt his hands shaking. He looked at her, breathing hard, and realized with sudden clarity that his wolf had not been fighting for revenge. It had been fighting for her. That night, Elira finally showed him the letters she had found. She explained everything. her voice steady despite the fear of his reaction. Cade read the words slowly, his jaw tightening with every sentence. If this was true, then his revenge had been aimed at innocent people for 10 long years. He wanted to reject it. It was easier to hate the Vance pack than to accept that his enemy might not be who he thought. But something in Alira's eyes, honest and unafraid, made him pause. "Why would you show me this?" Cade asked quietly. "This could destroy your family's position." "Because you deserve the truth," Alira answered. "And because I am tired of living inside a lie that hurts both of us." Cade said nothing for a long moment. Then, for the first time since their wedding, he let his guard fall, even if only slightly. "I don't know what to believe anymore," he admitted. "Then let's find out together," Alira said. From that night on, something between them began to change. They started working side by side, quietly investigating who among the Vance Council could have ordered the attack all those years ago. Cade shared what he had learned from his own sources, and Alira used her position to gather documents and testimonies that had been buried for years. As they spent more time together, Cade's wolf grew calmer, no longer fighting against him but settling into a steady, protective presence whenever Alira was near. Cade found himself looking forward to their quiet evenings, when they would sit together, reviewing old records, sometimes talking long after the work was done. He noticed small things about her, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was concentrating, the soft laugh she tried to hide when one of his guards made a joke, the strength in her voice whenever she spoke about protecting her people. Slowly, without meaning to, Cade began to see her not as an enemy's daughter, but simply as Alira. Alira, too, found herself drawn to him in ways she had not expected. Beneath his cold exterior was a man carrying immense grief, someone who had spent a decade punishing himself for not being able to save his parents. She began to understand that his anger was never really about hatred, it was about loss. Their investigation eventually led them to a small group of Vance Council members who had secretly ordered the attack on the Nightfall border years ago. Their goal had never been simple violence. They wanted to weaken both packs, create endless conflict between them, and eventually seize control over both territories for themselves. Alira's father had tried to stop the attack when he discovered their plan, but he arrived too late and was later blamed to protect the real culprits. When the truth came out, both packs were shaken. Cade stood before his people and explained everything, showing them the evidence Alira had risked her safety to uncover. The Nightfall warriors, who had spent years believing the Vance pack was their enemy, listened in stunned silence. The council members responsible for the attack refused to surrender peacefully. They had spent years building hidden alliances, and now moved to seize power by force, sending trained fighters against both packs in a final attempt to secure control before the truth could unite their enemies. Cade and Alira stood together at the front of the joined forces of Nightfall and Vance warriors, fighting side by side for the first time. Cade's wolf surged forward, not with the desperate fury of revenge, but with the steady strength of someone protecting the person and the people he now called his own. Alira fought bravely beside him, refusing to hide while her home and her new pack faced danger. The battle was fierce, but with both packs finally working together instead of against each other, the traitors were defeated. The council members who had orchestrated the massacre and years of hidden conflict were captured and brought to justice before the eyes of both territories. In the quiet that followed, Cade found Alira standing near the edge of the battlefield, exhausted but unharmed. He walked toward her slowly, his wolf calm and content for the first time in 10 years. "You were right," he said softly, "about all of it." Alira looked up at him, her eyes tired but warm. "I know how hard this was for you, letting go of something you carried for so long." Cade reached for her hand, the same hand he had held at their wedding when his wolf first claimed her as his mate. This time, there was no hesitation in his touch. "I spent 10 years planning to destroy your family," he said. "I never imagined I would end up wanting to protect it instead." "Maybe your wolf knew something you didn't," Alira said gently. Cade almost smiled, something rare for him. Maybe it did. In the days that followed, the two packs began the slow process of healing old wounds. Families who had once viewed each other with suspicion started building new connections. Warriors who had trained to fight one another now trained side by side. The territories that had lived under the shadow of a decade old lie finally began to move forward together. Cade officially announced Illyra as his true Luna before both packs, not as a political arrangement, but as his chosen mate. He spoke openly about the mistakes of his revenge, admitting that his anger had almost cost him the one person who could have healed him. Illyra, standing beside him, addressed both packs as well. She spoke of her father's sacrifice, of the truth they had uncovered together, and of a future built not on old grudges, but on trust. As the two territories slowly merged into one stronger alliance, Cade often found himself watching Illyra from across a room, remembering how his wolf had recognized her long before his mind was ready to accept it. He understood now that fate had never made a mistake. It was his own anger that had almost blinded him to the truth. One quiet evening, as the sun set over the newly united lands, Cade and Illyra stood together on a balcony, overlooking the joined territories. The fires of celebration burned below, marking the beginning of a new era of peace. "Do you regret it?" Illyra asked. "Marrying me for revenge?" Cade turned to look at her, his expression softer than she had ever seen it. "I regret every day I spent trying to hate you," he said. "But I will never regret the day my wolf refused to let me." Illyra smiled, leaning into him, as his arm wrapped protectively around her shoulders. For the first time in 10 years, Cade felt something he thought he had lost forever: peace, not just for his territories, but within himself. The Alpha King who had married for revenge had found something far greater than vengeance could ever offer. He had found his true mate, his equal, and the strength to finally let go of the past. Together, Cade and Illyra stood as symbols of a new beginning, proof that even the deepest wounds could heal when built upon truth, courage, and love that refused to be denied.